120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning, we got two talk champions in the house and a special guest joining us in a little while. We got Cacique and Dr. Maya Bowen, both in the house this morning.
Yes.
Dr. Bowen, how are you?
Feeling pretty good on a Wednesday. I'm back from vacation, but I'm on my way to another one, so it's all good. I'm enjoying the summer so far. I went to the Caribbean for the first time, so I've got my international stamp, and looking forward to doing some more cruising. And just taking one day at a time, especially with me being in this new position. There's a learning curve, but I'm a student of life, so I'm always open to learning.
All right. Doesn't get any better than that. That's for sure. Dr. Cacique is in the house.
All right, now I just got a promotion, Dr.
Promotion,
Maya.
there you go.
I see that. I see that.
Well, Dr. Maya, I agree with you. Congratulations on your vacation. Have a great time and do it in safety and in good health, man. That's the best.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you know, I said this to you earlier, and I want to say it so the audience can hear it, but you look so happy and excited today, and your smile is brighter than usual. What's going on, Dr. Bowen?
Listen, I have an attitude of gratitude. I'm grateful to see this beautiful day. Nobody has seen this day before, and so I'm ready to rock and roll and take on everything that comes towards me with an attitude of gratitude, and just take one moment at a time, and let's go with the flow. Become like water, like Bruce Lee says.
That's what's up. Be water, yes. Beautiful. So, Dr. Maya, listen, let's jump right in, man. The crisis now at the Board of Education, we've spoken about, you know, some of the things that are going on. I'm getting calls from principals now talking about how Leslie, and incidentally, that principal over at the Trinity Magnet was fired. They made it seem like she resigned. They gave her 2 months' salary, and then they blamed it on the black secretary. But she got fired. You know, they did it like that so she can go and see. This is what they do. We have to talk about this. This is what they do. This is a person who committed a crime in our district. She was allowed to resign so she can go to work somewhere else. So more than likely, the same chicanery that took place in our district will happen somewhere else because she doesn't have any type of record following her.
That's deep. So I don't know the full details of it, but I will tell you this: that transparency should be something that is upheld within leadership and throughout the ranks in terms of who it is that's being supervised. And so where it is that there's low morale and there's many questions circulating in this educational environment, individuals, you know, true to form, really and truly, at this point, I don't want to use the A word, but I'm thinking that a performance audit and financial audit needs to actually be done for the Harper Public School System.
That's an outstanding recommendation, Dr. Maya, and I'm right there with you. And, you know, and I've said it before, and I want to say it again. Leslie did a wonderful job taking the district through the pandemic. We can't be grateful enough. You know, she did everything that she had to do to get us through. But, you know, we have to learn when we have taken something as far as we can and when it's time to move on, and I've said that. So not only do I agree with the audit, but I'm going to continue to press the issue that, you know, we need a new superintendent. And while I'm on it, I want to say that it should be somebody. We have some individuals that are phenomenal leaders, and we have people that are not principals that should be principals, you know? So, yes.
So interestingly enough, hiring from within is something that actually should be done within the Harper Public School System, because who better to understand what has gone on than individuals that's currently been involved in a significant way in regards to the ins and outs. In terms of the community aspect for our schools, there's a major disconnect when it is that you bring individuals from the outside in because they have no relationship formulated with the community. Another question for me in my head that I've been pondering is, how is it that you go into a position and not get to know the community or operate as a community-focused leader? And altogether, the way I see it, and this might be conflating things, but the way I see it, everybody within an educational system is an educator. So for those who are classified as students, from the custodian all the way through the principal and superintendent, they are all educators, and they can't get around it. So what it is that they model before the students is being internalized by not only the students, but their parents and guardians and community members that are looking from the outside in. So now's the time to actually shape up and really and truly show and prove in terms of the words that you proclaim in terms of being being or striving towards excellence. Make that happen. It's got to become tangible because your words say one thing, but your actions say totally the opposite.
And Dr. Maya, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine this morning, but I believe that all policy should be driven by the community. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of how we're policed, we should drive that. How our children are educated, we should drive that. So parent involvement, parent feedback, that's always important because it lets them know that we're watching, that that they're not going to do things in a vacuum on their own, that they have people that they have to be accountable to. So yes, I agree.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Kinsuke. The sad thing about it is that from a historical and present reference, there are gatekeepers that parents and guardians meet up with that do not welcome them at all. That's a sad reality of it, right? And so if it is that I become dissuaded in engaging with a gatekeeper at any educational facility that I go to that my child attends, depending on my personality, I may not want to even engage, right? Because I'm not welcome. If I'm not welcomed, then I'm not going to participate. So it all lends towards how it is that we're treating each other in terms of respect and whether or not we are gracious with our welcome, not treating parents and guardians as the enemy to a system that actually becomes their quasi parents and guardians when they are within those facilities. So that's really something to think about. You can't meet me with an attitude and think I'm not going to feel some type of way about that.
Well, and Dr. Maya, I mean, I can't say enough about that. That was a theme that was constant for me when I worked in Hartford and in New Britain. I told both superintendents and I told the principals many times about how unwelcoming our schools are to parents, and they make parents feel like they don't belong there. What are you doing here? Why are you here? I remember one time in New Britain, I called the parent in for a meeting, and they have this rule that you got to have ID, so they take a picture of your ID. So a parent came in for a meeting, and they didn't have their ID, and the secretary knew this person, knew they were there for a meeting, but yet turned the person away. So I came over and I said, wait a minute, this person was here the other day. You got their picture right here. Pull it up. And we were able to resolve that. But the secretary, a very racist person, turned that family away. Just like that. Instead of finding a way to make that family have access so they can have their meeting, they were ready to just turn them away without any thought at all. And this is the kind of environment that I would venture to say most of the schools have when it comes to welcoming the community. And these are the bottom line is that whether they're called community schools or not, Dr. Maya, they're in our community. So that makes them by default community schools because they're right in the middle of our community. So I don't know what the deal is with that. And you, Stan, and I many times have said that schools should be open till at least 9 o'clock, accessible to the community, to the children, the moms, the dads, the residents, and offer different programs that the school itself, the day staff do not have to be involved with. You know what I'm saying? You create like a whole different thing for the evening. It could be, English as a second language, GEDs. You can have counseling sessions. You can have, all kinds of leagues and all kinds of, tournament things that the community can get involved in to make people feel like this is our school and we are completely vested in everything that goes on with the school.
Parks and Rec should be at every school.
And I've said this many times when I was a young man, when I was in my grade school, middle school, and high school, Parks and Recs was open, and it was phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? But they have, I don't know what happened, but now they're not in the schools. Now they have these other programs, and programs like Compass, which I'm extremely disappointed in, Jackie and her staff, because they took Compass out of the schools without letting the community know. You know, they went completely, and it's just
really transparent.
No, there's no transparency, and they go completely, like, they go completely like big company on you. You know, like you don't have access to them or nothing, and then they make up these programs and they get money for them, but nobody knows about them.
I think that's one of the problems that happens when your basic. Well, I shouldn't say basic. When there's a reason for grassroots. Grassroots is not less than.
Right.
It's where you're at.
Right.
And they go from grassroots to corporate.
They become
and then
corporate right away.
Once you become corporate, then it's only about the profit.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's exactly what happened to Compass. You know, where it was, and I always complain about, community-based organizations like Compass, because they, a lot of times they're run by somebody who's making a lot of money on the backs of the young people, and they do very little. They do very little to really educate and to lift up not just the staff, but the young people that they're working with. They do very little. There's very little follow-up and stuff like that. So, I've always had concerns about organizations like that.
Yeah, I'm seeing a great divide in terms of the reporting out of outcomes. Right. So, for example, if you give me $350,000 to run a program, it should be that from a monthly or quarterly basis that I am providing you with what the results are in a timely fashion. Right. So here it is that there have been X number of contracts for good money, good amounts of money. The one I harp on the most is that tutoring for nearly $3.3 million. My goodness. The way it is that it was served up on a platter in terms of having to be voted upon expeditiously per the presentation that the superintendent gave was as if it was do it now or we lose out. Now, it was supposed to serve 4,500 students. It roughly served 800. I recently got a phone call from one of the administrators telling me that they would like to provide me with an update related to the outcomes. However, in that very same message, they don't have all those details together. So we can't have a conversation if you're not going to be able to address what I brought to the attention during the June board meeting in totality. What are we talking about?
Well, listen.
Why did you give me a call? And now keep in mind, this is 2 months later. Well, it must have been May or June, but I'm saying it's been a month later. They're supposed to follow up, I think, in 48 hours or so, 48, 72 hours within a week. But it was an entire month. And yet it's still the data that they so love to harp upon is not collected. Now, 4,500 students versus 800 students, $3.3 million. The whole modality turned from it being online after school to in school during school hours. Who knows when and how that was actually managed and what the students that actually took part in it missed in terms of other class instruction. I don't know those details. The transparency, again, is not there. They're quick to give out that money, but they are lacking in getting quick results out to the public so we know what type of results or outcomes that the students have made based on spending that money. I don't know about you, but if it is that I send my car in for maintenance and you give me a bill, everything that was supposed to be fixed better be fixed. Otherwise, you got some explaining to do. And this is where it is that the accountability is not being held to those individuals that are actually voting in favor and not being given the actual outcomes so that they can report out to the community. Now, the Board of Education has their board members. When you have multiple board members voting in favor for something and consistently the results or the outcomes are not reported back to them, who do they look to because of their oversight functionality? To the superintendent, who then looks to her staff. So it's the superintendent or staff that should be giving the results to the board members so they can know what type of progress or lack thereof that has been made. More often than not, what I've seen is that the reports that come out are only in favorable light of particular schools, which that does nothing for us in understanding the totality of the entire school district. There are like what 20 plus schools. If you're only reporting out on a certain few that are being highlighted because they are thriving, that's a problem because you're not giving us the full picture. You're actually giving us a screenshot.
So, Dr. Maya, thank you for that. Beautiful. It was beautiful, your content. The first thing that I would say about that, sister, is where's the rest of the money? Just on that subject alone, $3.2 million to serve 4,500 students. You serve roughly 800, but those numbers are probably tainted. So what happened to the rest of the money? And see, here's the thing. Right. Here's the other thing that I would add to this. And people get angry when I use the language that I use, but I think it's very appropriate. These people that are not reporting, and it has to do with money, we have to find out if they're stealing, because if they are, then they are committing crimes and they should be prosecuted immediately. You know what I'm saying? Because we need to have, safety valves every step of the way, because we know that humans, and that would include us, our nature sometimes is when we're going through some rough times and we have money available to us that's not ours, sometimes we use that money, right? And I think that that's what's happening. It's too much money coming into Hartford. And let me say this about tutoring. A lot of these after-school programs offer tutoring. I've never seen it in none of them. They offer it, but it never takes place. I'm just telling you, firsthand. Okay? And then this thing with tutoring during the day, that means that there's a strong possibility, Dr. Maya, that our children are being taken out of their class to be tutored. I don't like that.
Well, if you're
tutoring is something that should happen after school. You know what I'm saying? So they can have the regular day.
Yeah. So
you know what I'm saying? So if I'm in math and you're gonna take me to tutor me in science, that don't make no sense.
Now you're missing out on math and science.
Eventually I'm gonna need tutoring in math, because I'm missing out. So I don't know who comes up with these ideas, but that's what I mean by policy has to be driven by the community, because it's like Stan said earlier, right? Any entity that becomes corporate no longer has the interests of the people, whether it's their employees, the people that they're supposed to be serving. In this case, the Board of Ed does not have the interests of our students when they're doing stuff like that.
I would lean back on the Board of Ed just a little bit. So here's the thing: there's certain members that seem to like to play into being a little bit too associated in terms of friendship versus supervisory functionality in their role. So it's almost like they see the superintendent as a colleague and not as someone that they supervise, which they need to lend a no to. So there's no delineation in terms of some boundaries established for the purpose of being able to vote what would be in the best interest of the actual students.
So it becomes a
versus
good
satisfying-
old
hold on
guys
for a
club,
second,
Dr. Maya.
Hold on for a second. Versus satisfying the request of the superintendent. So, at some point in time, as a board member, you should not feel like you're always saying yes. I don't care what it's about. If it is that it's not really going to benefit the students, keeping in mind that the outcomes of every other dollar prior to you approving this cash outflow of dollars to another vendor that is typically not local in the Harvard community, you don't even know what happened with the other $100 million for multiple contracts, totality, because no outcomes have been reported to you. And when they are reported to you, it's way past the fact. So how do you even adjust for making a actual decision? If you're always going to just rubber stamp something, you really don't need to be in that position. You need to see yourself as a board member who is in a supervisory position that is working in the best interest of the students and the community. Those are the stakeholders that you are being held to a standard by. But if you are close to the superintendent where you refuse to say no to whatever she proposes or requests, then we get what we get. Hence, a performance audit and financial audit needs to be done for the district. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad in terms of how people may see it, but let's take a look at it. If we don't talk facts and uncover what's been going on, I hope nobody's expecting for it to get better without understanding where it is that we currently are in the grand scheme of things. We got to pull the covers off of this. Otherwise, we're going to have a whole nother thing coming down the pipe that is not going to be very favorable. Where we sit right now, things aren't very favorable. No, are they?
So what I was saying, Dr. Maya, it sounds like it just becomes like a good old boys club. You know what I'm saying? They kind of just hang out and nothing really gets done.
Well, there needs to be some.
If everybody's rubber stamping the superintendent
Not
stuff,
not everybody, the majority. Because remember, everybody gets one vote.
yeah.
Well, the majority rules.
We need to start having these Board of Ed members come on this show and asking them some questions, man.
I think that's
I'm gonna start calling.
invite.
I'm
I think that's legitimate. But I think what we need to do is really push and drive community members to start showing up at board meetings and asking some of these tough questions, because oversight, trust but verify.
Yeah.
There just needs to be better oversight, because in theory, the board members are the oversight panel. But if you have now, just as a thought, if you have a corporate approach to things, then corporations are in the business of making money.
Yes.
All right. So once you get into that corporate headspace, then everything becomes about the money,
Right.
about the dollars. How do we move these dollars? What's in the best interest, and how do we profit from the dollars? What's the return on our dollars? As opposed to the chief interest for the school system should be educating the kids. So then the return is how many kids are succeeding, how many kids are graduating, how many kids can read above grade level, how many kids are going into the trade, how many kids are going into college, what is their success track. Everything is geared to that. And then what resources do we need to get them there? Because the resource may not be money. The resource might be a better headspace of the teachers.
Well, here's the thing for me, Stan, and I don't want to lose track of this. Once again, Dr. Maya says something that was right on the money, and we cannot lose track of this. The $100 million again. What happened to that? It's about money again. So we do need to think about how the corporate
audit.
I agree. She stated that earlier. So I agree, right, that these people are stealing. I'm telling you, I know they're stealing. But unless we conduct these, and then when we find out that they're stealing, we can't let them do like the police do. The police commit a crime and then they judge themselves. So if people on this on the Board of Ed, whether there is the Board of Ed members or staff at whoever's doing it, when we find out, we cannot allow them, Dr. Maya, to judge themselves. Oh, well, we're gonna suspend you for 6 months. You stole $3.2 million, and we're gonna suspend you for 2 weeks. Because that kind of stuff goes on, and I'm very wary of that because on this show you say a lot of important stuff, Dr. Maya, that all these people know about, but yet nothing is being done, and that's really the thing that sticks in my head the most. Mm-hmm. That nothing, everybody knows. Even the ones that aren't voting for the superintendent, rubber stamping her stuff, they know stuff, and yet nobody's going public with that information. You know what I'm talking about? So to me, it's like I said earlier, it becomes a good old boys club where it's just fun being a member while you're there. You got some certain person privileges, and then when your time is up, you just leave quietly.
Well, that's an unacceptable.
Well, that's what's happening right now, right, Dr. Maya? Isn't that basically what's happening?
There's so many variables and moving parts and non-moving parts in this whole equation, right? Really and truly, from my perspective, it would be nice to have the superintendent and her staff actually provide timely information so that more of the report out of outcomes based on how these dollars are spent. Let's put it this way. If I was in Avon or in West Hartford or Farmington, you think the board members aren't getting a report related to how that money is spent? They absolutely are. But on our end, that does not seem to be the case, which means that if it is that I'm placing the vote as a board member without the details related to how it is that the money has already been spent, when somebody comes back for more money, how can I vote in favor of that when I don't even know what you did the first time?
Exactly. And that's conspiracy.
I can't. That's
criminal.
I mean, if I do, my vote is on the record. But the question becomes how detrimental is that to me? Because I already know that I'm working within a structure that's not going to penalize me. Because I voted yes, even though I don't have all the information I need to vote.
And see, that's what I mean.
Vote correctly.
Well,
not necessarily vote no, but vote correctly. I don't have everything that I need to actually go affirmative or affirm the request being made for a second round of funding to the same company. So I don't want to mix apples with oranges. If ABC Company initially got a contract for X amount of dollars, didn't report out, then the superintendent didn't report that out to me as a board member or us as a board as a group, but then ABC Company comes back to renew or ask for an extension, but I don't have any details in terms of outcomes, and then I decide to vote yes without those details, then what does that say about me? I didn't have any pushback. So, I mean, what are you going to do? Just rubber stamp? Why would you rubber stamp? You're in a position where you can actually nip that in the bud and demand that you have the adequate data to be able to assess whether or not ABC Company should be rewarded or awarded with additional funding to continue to work with our students.
Well, let me interject and suggest something. Every system produces, of course, what the system is designed to produce. So, I think that the investigation and the deep dive into all of this is useful if the information once once it comes out is if it resonates with a group of people. I think in some towns it would, but in other towns it doesn't. And I think we also have to remember that Hartford's a very poor city. The people in Hartford are poor. Hartford's not poor. The people in Hartford are poor because there's a lot of money in Hartford.
Yes.
There's just not a lot of money in the pockets of the people who make ultimate decisions. So if the oversight panel is bogged down with all kinds of other issues, like how they're going to pay their rent, their phone bill, their cable bill, how they're going to pay for food or medicine, then they're not necessarily concerned about these things. And so you really need individuals or groups that do these things. And I think this is one reason why your grassroots organizations always wind up compromised, because they're the ones who are actually doing the oversight and the deep dive. And then next thing you know, they wind up being co-conspirators with the very group that they're supposed to be keeping in check. So you almost need like investigative reporters to go in, do the deep dive, and then just report what they're doing. Because if I think it's less. It's a combined problem, but it's less the problem of leadership that doesn't produce the data that the board members need, and more a problem of the board members demanding the information. And so to me, the people accountable are the people at the top. So either it's the leader, in this case, of course, would be superintendent, or it's the board that sets the policy and monitors the success of the superintendent. So like, what are the deliverables and what is the relationship between the oversight body and the executive or the executing body, the people who are supposed to be, or persons supposed to be implementing all these policies? Because it's my observation that this person is a subordinate of this body.
Right.
But that is how it's supposed to be. It seems to me that this body is a subordinate of this person.
Yes.
And this is one reason why you need a change in leadership in certain institutions and operations, because once the oversight body is under the is becomes subordinate to the leader, it's a wrap, because there's no longer this entity that holds them in check. So what she should be or he should be doing is almost irrelevant, because they're not doing it. And once
this is flipped upside down, the dynamics of.
So we need a new board.
It looks like we're gonna have to shake up the deck. Yes.
You need new
So it's
new
safe
board
to
members.
say that we don't.
Replace them.
It's
You
Dr.
gotta
Maya and Stan.
them out.
It's safe to say that the community doesn't have presently any representation
That's
on the Board of Ed.
right.
It would be safe for me to say that.
Right. So what we have ultimately then would be government without, what is it? Something without representation?
Yes, government without representation. That's correct.
So you have no representation when your representatives no longer represent you, which should be abundantly evident unless you're suffering from Stockholm syndrome. It should be easy to ascertain. Are your kids graduating? Can they read and write? These are things that you can really take a look at. Are certain things operating and functioning the way they should? If they're not, then you have no representation.
Well, according
I would
to
say
some,
really quickly.
yes,
I would say really quickly that there are two individuals that are on the board right now that are trying to establish an accountability measure. That would be Shantae Brody and Tyron Walker, based on what I've observed. So, the remaining board members though have y'all better look at what they're doing. Look at all the videos. They've been recorded. Community, y'all need to chime in on this in order for us to redirect the course of this ship.
So we need to replace. We need to we need to replace the ones.
Well,
we need to replace the ones. We need to replace all the others except them.
Well, let me say this though. Let me say this real quick. When Shantae Brody came on the board, I was in some committee with her or something, and I remember saying to her sister, the first thing you need to start doing is start rewriting every policy and every rule of the Board of Ed because it's all racist. And Tyrone Walker, I'm surprised to hear about him because he's one of the biggest supporters of the white power structure in Hartford. He's a member of the 6th District Town Committee. He supported all of the dumb things that they do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of surprised to hear that he's doing something like that. Maybe he wants to be black again. Because, you know, we've had a lot of people.
You can never not be black.
No. Listen. A lot of black and brown people, sister, get up in the morning, and when they look in the mirror, they see a white person. I'm telling you, because of the way they behave. And now when they start to try to come back and do some things. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, but you know what? In all reality, black and brown people, because of the pigment of their skin, are the only entities on this planet that can never claim to be white.
But they may not be white in their complexion, but the headspace.
I'm saying our physical appearance, the fact that they think like and behave like non-melanated people. Now that's a whole different thing. Because here's the thing: you at any time that you're looking in the mirror, you are not going to be able to negate or not see the pigment in your skin, unless the lights are out, and that's where every color is actually just darkened. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not negating that. But the thing in terms of the mindset and the behaviors, that's what you're speaking to, and I understand that, Kasike. And so even if the mindset and behaviors, when they are coming up against someone who's going to oppress them, they don't see their mindset and behaviors. They see their outward appearance first. So yes, I would agree with you, Kasike, that they behave as though they're not black. But I'm 100% with you with that. But at the end of the day, you can't even negate the fact that you are, and you will be treated as such depending on who you encounter. And that's not all the way across the board, but it depends on who you come in contact with. You even get mistreated by your own black people, or brown people. So, you know, it's a very chaotic situation that we have going on here. But to that end, we should be seeking solutions in terms of correcting the matters that are very much lopsided. Because our students, if we say our kids are our future, and we're not doing what's in their best interest to make sure that we can pass the baton to them and be confident that they'll do a good to decent job, that's on us as adults.
Well,
So
I think that we know what the issue is. We know what they're not accomplishing. So the product we're getting is not the product that we expect to receive.
Right.
And so if it can't be changed in a relatively short time, then we have a real problem. And you know, we need another vehicle to get us to where we need to be. So if we have individuals who, maybe I'll phrase it this way: if we have individuals who do not see the level of oppression that they are suffering from, then they will not seek to change it. So what are they using as their frames of reference? So, like, if I have 50% of my kids not come to school this month, and next month I get one more, then I can say our attendance is increasing. Well,
Yep.
that's true technically, but the crisis is that they're only 50% plus one here. We are still missing 3,000 children. We're the other kids. So, we don't want any kids missing from school. We want all kids reading at the 8th grade level, minimum. We want all kids focused on like reading, writing, arithmetic. Other social issues are fine, but that's not what they're in school for. We're focusing on the wrong things, and therefore we're not getting the kind of outcomes that we should be getting. I guarantee you, the parents in Avon absolutely positively they're not putting up with this stuff. They show up in mass, but they have disposable income. They have representatives that represent them, or they walk down to City Hall or over to the school board and they get rid of them.
Well, and the other thing is, check this out. So I had a principal in Hartford tell me that he got his kids in the school in Southington, and he said that in Southington, the superintendent and the Board of Education members got to walk a real thin line, and they can't make no changes without letting, like if they're going to change the principal of a school, they got to let the whole community of that school know. They got to have a meeting. They got to let them know the reasons, and then they got to ask for permission, because if they make any move, and any move at all, and I'm not even playing, any move at all, the parents will have a meeting, and whoever made the decision, their behind is out.
And now that's as it should be.
Out, not suspended, not chastised. They out, from the superintendent to the custodial staff and everybody in between.
See, that's defined. I mean? That's a definition of a community.
Yeah.
Self-policing, self-educating, and self-sustaining.
But
so if your community is not, if you don't teach your own, if you don't police yourself,
yes,
if you don't sustain yourself, it is not your community. And that's what's happened. We've allowed our community to no longer be our community. We have other people have taken over the community.
The corporations. It becomes all corporate. Stan, but I want to jump into something real quick that happened recently before we lose Dr. Maya, because I would love to have her input. We just had the Democratic Town Committee nominations. And so the brother Arunan got the nomination. I just want to tell our audience, our listeners and our viewers, that I'm happy that you didn't get it, because we're going to win, and we're going to win without any party's endorsement, because that's how you teach them who the hell is in charge in our community.
Absolutely.
You go out there and you win. So I just want to say that I'm deeply disappointed but not surprised that Brother Ed Vargas is supporting John Fonfera. Ed, brother, why do you continue to support the white power structure? I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. Because you got that big, fat, cushy job at Central. You know what I'm saying? Now you got Jimmy Sanchez as a state rep. I used to consider him my friend, but I can't do that anymore because of his political decisions. He also wants to be a police apologizer and a white power structure supporter. And to be honest with you, the brother may be a little slow, because he may not recognize what he's doing. So, I have to say that. We're going to be putting people out here. We're going to put you on blast because you continue to do the same thing that hurts our community. So, Ed, you get an F, but I'm not surprised, because you've been a white power structure supporter your whole life. Even when they turn their back on you, you come back and you still want to kiss that behind. So there it is, family. That's one of our, brothers that continues to do that. And we'll have others. What I would say to the community is to look at who supports who, and that tells you what kind of person they are. If they continue to support anybody who's a Democrat or a Republican, they're supporting the party. They're not working with our community. Stan McCauley is a man of the community, and we need to take a good, strong, hard look at him. He should be our next mayor. Let's do the right thing.
I approve that message.
I would approve.
Even though
too.
I didn't solicit it, but I'm forced to have to agree with you, because sometimes we may not like the way a thing looks, but it is what it is. It's like if someone slaps you in the face, and then they say, I didn't slap you. Yeah, but I felt that. Did you really feel me slap you? Did you see me slap you? Here they start gaslighting you. Now I think you moved your hand. You moved your face toward my hand.
No, your face struck my hand.
Yes, your face struck my hand, and it
And
hurt.
they'll have you believe in that. And that's what's happening here. They'll have you believing that your face is going around punching people's fists.
Right.
I'm telling you, Stan.
And you know what? I'm gonna press charges, officer, because he punched my fist with his face.
That's what I'm saying. Let's take him away. Well, let's see who supports who, because in the past, I remember I called Doug McCrory and I said, Doug, what happened, man? Why did you support? He says on the phone, he says, Lou, I know, man. He couldn't say nothing. That's the best he could do. I know. Like he knew he made a mistake. So let's see who he supports now. And others, not just Doug, but others. Mm-hmm. I hear that Manny Gonzalez is supporting Arunin.
No,
who is she supporting?
Senator Fonfara.
Oh, they're all with Fon. And it's funny. I'm gonna tell y'all a story about John Fonfara. And this was told to me by Hector Robles, who's passed. Rest in peace, brother. Hector told me that it had happened to like 4 or 5 people, and he says he personally knew about it. He says because it happened to him. Mm-hmm. John Fonfara told Hector was running against him. He said, Hector, don't run against me. Next time, I won't run and I'll support you. And Hector said he seemed so honest, and he said it with such conviction that I threw my whole lot behind him. So next time around, I'm thinking I'm going to have John Fonfara support. I'm a shoo-in. So John Fonfara runs again. And this time, Hector doesn't buy the line. But there's another person who's running that's looking better than Hector. So John goes to him with the same line. He gave Ed Vargas the same line. He gave Manny Gonzalez the same line. He gave
what a way to
a
take
couple
out your
others.
competition.
He gave a couple others the same line. And I just gotta say it, man. John Fonfara is what we define as a slick ass cracker, because he goes around and he lies and he lies and he lies, and this is what the people want. That's why Hartford is in the situation that it's in. Him and Eric Coleman are proud of standing up and this is recorded, right? They're proud of standing up and saying, Eric and I have been in office for so many years, and we've seen our district decline in other districts, or we've seen other districts decline in our own. And so when they said that, the only thing that came to my head immediately is, then why are you running? If you have been unable to stop the downfall of your own district, what is your plan for our city? You know what I'm saying? And in my country, and I have to say this, and about anybody who supports the white power structure, in my country, we say that fresh people like that have to wash their face with urine in order to come out here and be able to do what they do. You got to have they're fresh. They're fresh people. They don't respect us. They don't respect our children. They don't respect our elders. They don't respect our way of life. And we have to put an end to this. You know what I'm saying? And we have to take charge of how everything is done in our community. The way that we're policed, the way that our children are educated. Stan, last week, and Dr. Maya, you know this more about this than I do. Several weeks in a row, Stan has talked about how, I think the number is 41%, Stan, of our population is illiterate.
Oh, that's on the low side. the low side, 41 to 61% of the adults in Hartford are functionally illiterate. That means that they cannot read an ATM machine.
They can follow directions, but they can't read directions to do the job. And that's awful because and Dr. Meyer, you can chime in on this. The follow-up question to me is, if 41% of our adults, and that's the low number, are illiterate, what's that say about our kids?
Well, it speaks more to the adults that are in charge of performing their duties as teachers than anything. Because if it is that none of us get to choose our parents. So if my parent is already illiterate, and we have a school system in place that's supposed to teach, then what are they teaching in order to get results in terms of learning, so that the students are actually able to do the basic minimum of being able to read at grade level as well as do math, right? So if we took out all other disciplines and reading and math in terms of the whole English with inclusion of comprehension and writing, if those were the only things that we needed to focus on, and we're failing at that, how do we expect for them to actually tackle science? How do we expect them to tackle civics? How do we expect them to tackle politics and government, history? Who's reading that if you can't read at a level to allow for you to comprehend what you're reading and then write about it? Nobody is going to meet that challenge if it is that it's not happening where it's succinctly in place that students are able to read at minimum at their grade level. Forget all those other subjects. If they can't do that, then we've got an issue with what's actually being produced. Again, with the product being produced, our expectation is that our students can read and do math. Basic math. If they can't do basic math, that's a problem too. And that's a whole nother subject, but just reading itself. Now, I will lend to you a solution. Secretary of State should put into play her ADA accessibility services for all of our functionally illiterate community, so that it is that they can go out and vote, as well as utilize any technology in the industry. We have Spanish available for conversion. If it is that you only speak Spanish and you only read Spanish, you can go to many retailers and other places to actually have specific things translated where you can read and understand how to proceed in Spanish as an accessibility service per the ADA, American Disabilities Association. Anybody that is illiterate should have some type of artificial intelligence assistance in terms of being able to do such things as cast a vote. Hence, even simpler, put individuals' images in terms of who is on the ballot, on the forms, so that individuals could take that bubble. All right, with that, that's all I got.
All right.
I love it, Dr. Maya, man. I love it. Your passion when you talk about education is beautiful to watch. You know how passionate you are about it. So thank you for bringing that energy. Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we will be right back. Stick and stay. Don't go anywhere, my friends. It's Morning Talk, and where else can you have this much fun?
Nowhere.
Every bad political decision is made by a politician elected to office. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, just remember this. There are people sitting with politicians in a back room making deals about your future, making policies about your children, making decisions about your neighborhood. To them, you are just a vote. You are not their cause. You are just a vote. Elections have consequences, and if you don't vote, you are actually voting to keep these people in power to work against you. Now more than ever, you need to make your vote count. It's time to clear the air and vote for a mayor that is unbought, unbossed, trusted, and accountable to you, the constituent. My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I am an independent thinker, and I approve this message. I'm asking you for your vote on Tuesday, September the 12th, 2023, in the Democratic Party primary election for mayor of the city of Hartford. For more information, visit McCauleyformayor.com. Have the courage to vote your conscience and vote for the name you trust and know. Vote J. Stan McCauley for mayor.
Hi,
My name's J. Stan McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
The incomparable Jay Hogarth in the background. I'm trying to see if I can't get Jay to come.
Yeah, he'd be a great guest.
And play. Well, he was on, but I want him to play at the inauguration.
Oh, yes. Great, man. Yes.
Yeah. I think we can do that.
It's phenomenal. I like his music.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, we'll be here listening to Jay Hogarth for the rest of the day.
Yeah, if we had our way, right?
Absolutely. But his album deals a lot with consciousness and headspace and bringing you into that right place. You know, if you look at the song list and what the album is about, and so that kind of like ties into what we're getting ready to talk about now with our special guest that's going to be joining us here at the 9 o'clock hour. And I always let the producer who brought the guest do the introduction. So, Cacique, you had the floor, my friend.
Thank you, Stan. Well, I'd like to welcome Dr. Katie Ann Reed. She's a PhD in public health, and so we're very, very excited and happy to have her. Welcome, Katie Ann.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience this morning.
So, Dr. Reed, a doctor of public health, what exactly does that mean? I mean...
That's a really good question. And I think during the pandemic, I think a lot has been said and known about what is public health. So my doctorate is in public health. I received that at University of Albany in New York, upstate New York. So what that means is that a doctor in public health, we're well equipped to address population level health. Unlike a clinician who work with patient one-on-one, all those data that has been collected at the individual level makes its way at a aggregated level for us to now see what's going on in the community, in the population, to protect the population, to prevent major health issues that we're facing right now in the population. So, in a nutshell, public health address health at the population level.
Outstanding. So, Dr. Reed, do you write some of these policies? Do you like critique them? What is it that you do with that?
Good question. So a little bit more about my area in public health, because public health, we have so many areas of focus, whether it's um, community and behavioral health, that's my area of specialty, epidemiology, biostatistic, environmental health, healthcare administration, and the list goes on. And we look at other cross-cutting issues such as health disparities, health inequities, maternal child health. So those are some of the issues, our topics we covered. But in terms of my area of specialty, I consider myself a social behavioral health specialist, where I either, as a public health practitioner, we look to put out program to address a health issue. So when I worked in the state of New York in the Department of and Evaluation Unit, we look to see what are the childhood obesity initiative the state was putting out to address the childhood obesity initiative. And from there, are we doing what we're saying we're doing? Are we making use with public funding to address the obesity epidemic that was disproportionately affecting particular Black and Brown community? More of my public health practitioner standpoint, I do a lot of evaluation and program planning. So I work with community-based organization around the Greater Hartford area and even outside of the Greater Hartford area to evaluate to see whether their program is doing what they say they want to do for the community, and whether the program is effective at decreasing the initiative, the health condition that the program want to address. From an academic standpoint, because I am also a professor, I teach those very same things that I practice to help address inequities that disproportionately affect our Black and Brown communities.
That's outstanding. That's wonderful work. Can you tell us about one or two of the things that may be going on in Hartford that you are helping with?
Good question. So I'd like to highlight a program that I work with, which is the Blue Hill Civic Association, one of the oldest civic association in the Greater Hartford area. So I work particularly with youth, their youth program that provide services for our children to either be successful and complete high school, or provide services for youth who may need the resources or safe spaces, because we know what's going on in the Greater Hartford area. Would like to see more safe spaces for our youth, and the program provide a great program that provide the opportunity for you to excel and be successful citizens. So that's one of the programs that I work with right now, and I serve on their board. So I do a array of things with that organization. My overall goal as a health equity researcher is to influence policy, system, and environmental change. Oftentimes, we tend to want to focus on changing the individual, but we have to look at the policies, the system, the environment, and those things will hold people accountable. Those things will provide the resources that the community need to see the changes. We often want to educate. Education is good, but it's not as effective if it's multi-level, where you have you're addressing the health condition from a policy standpoint, a system standpoint, as well as environmental change. So that's one of the programs that I currently work with in the Greater Hartford area.
So, Dr. Reed, you yourself, when you work with a program like you're working, how much or how important is it for you to have?
I'm not sure I understand.
A cultural, you know, a cultural influence on the program?
That's an excellent point. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. You're kind of touching on a topic that I'm very much passionate about. So particularly when I do research, my research is focused on Black population, particular Afro-Caribbean population, myself as an Afro-Caribbean. And in order for us as public health practitioners, or even beyond public health practitioner, in order for us to really put out program to make a difference, we have to collect data at the level of the community. We can't put out an intervention or a program to address all the Black community, because there's so many variation even within the Black community itself. We could look at African American, there's different nuances around culture. We could look at the Afro-Caribbean community, there's different nuances around culture, and not to mention the Hispanic community. So when we think about putting out programs and to be culturally responsive, to be culturally sensitive, to be culturally tailored, we have to collect the specific data, because if we use one model for all Black community, we will not see the result that we would like to. And that's because we're not being responsive, we're not being sensitive, we're not being tailored to collect the data, or what I would say disaggregate the data or disaggregate the population, so we have a true understanding as to how we can impact change that will see itself where we start seeing dents in closing the gap to achieve health equity.
So it makes a huge difference when you make your proposal, that you include the cultural, the tradition, because they're very relevant to the folks in our community.
Oh, definitely. And myself as a researcher, when I collect data on the Afro-Caribbean population, having that insider outsider role, I'm able to interpret the data. You have your findings, but you also have to interpret the data to reflect the population, right? So we'll see a disconnect sometime where data is collected and it's not tailored to the specific population. And we're setting up ourselves for failure as public health practitioner, because if we look at the literature and say, oh, there's a finding that says Black population are less likely to adhere to diabetes intervention, but we didn't really look at those little intricateness that goes on within the culture around food and so forth. If we're not doing that, then we're not going to see the result. We're going to continue to see the disparities, especially within the Black population. Why we are so there's such a focus on comparing Black and white, which is not a bad place to compare, but we also need to compare within the Black population to see where the focus should be when addressing a particular health condition.
Outstanding, Dr. Reed. Stan?
The public health, well, I don't. I'm. My hesitation is, there's certain terms you, at one time, if you said on social media, you could be blocked out for life. So I'm trying to find the right words to talk about things. When it comes to global health initiatives that impact nations and economies, the determination as to how you distribute
the resources
and ways to help people. how are some of these things determined? We just got out of a big global issue around the pandemic, and certainly this is something that needs to be taken extremely seriously. But like when these policies are made, because right before you came on the air, we were having a discussion in terms of policies relative to education and how the public should make input into these. But there are some things that the public, totally unaware of. Clearly, they're not experts at. But how difficult is it, and what methods are used to try to communicate to people the necessity? And I'll use this as an example. It's kind of a long-winded way to get to the question. You would have individuals test, silver coins in their pocket as a way to reduce stress and sell those by the millions. Yet you can't move an item that in theory is going to save your life. Who makes those decisions as to how to get this stuff out? Are those made by policy experts? Are they made by health experts or politicians?
That's a very good question. And when we think about policy, I always answer the question, there are so many stakeholders who are involved in the process. Sometimes some stakeholders are viewed as more important than the others. So let's start from a stakeholder standpoint, from a funding capacity, public health practitioners, community gatekeepers. They're all at the table, but sometimes being at the table doesn't mean your point, your community needs are reflective of what's supposed to be. And also the community resident taking a stand of showing up at the poll, right? Because if we show up at the polls, not at the national level election, but the very localized one, that makes a huge difference. If we show up in numbers and who we advocate for and who have our best interests, we'll see where initiative and policy and funding are more reflective in the community needs that we look for. It's very critical when you think about who's at the table, right? And how we change who's at the table, that's a very tricky question to answer. I don't really think I have the answer at this time. But it all depends on who's at the table, who really have the interests of the community. And we as community resident, myself as I live in Hartford, we just have to show up at the polls if we want to see the change that we're looking for. And we also, when information are put out to the community, and going back again, it needs to be tailored to the community understanding what that looks like. How will it impact their community? How will it impact their family? How will it impact their pockets, right? So I don't think it's put out to the community in that sense, in a broad base. I would like to see more of that. So it's a stakeholder perspective, and it includes everyone.
I don't think you can overstate the importance of showing up at the polls,
community
involvement, because in terms of the polls, because of how the wizards of smart and the chief, I'll call them the architects, because the architects make the presentation to the stakeholders, and then they decide which stakeholders they want to listen to in terms of moving the product forward. And when you show up at the poll, that your presence is kind of like a currency that they use, because Lou or Kasike mentioned earlier about the endorsement that just happened here in Hartford in terms of politics, and the Democratic Town Committee in a town where it's a one-party town. The Democrats run the town, so the town committee becomes very, very powerful in terms of putting forward a candidate, and to challenge that candidate, you have 10 days to get about 1,800 signatures. About 2,500 to 3,000 to be on the safe side, because some of those signatures won't matter. Now, those are the party rules, and it is what it is. But having said that, they make it extremely difficult to challenge the will of the town committee. There's about 77 individuals, so you need half plus one to determine. And the reason I go into this is because if the individuals that make up the town committee have personal interests or even tiny micro interests within their community, they're very easy to siphon off in terms of, well, I can do that for you. I'll do that for you. But they're doing it for you, and they may not really be representative of the community's need. And so if people don't go out in mass because they think these people here are representing them, then they're seen as either they're not engaged enough to matter, because the absence of their voice, we don't have to worry about hearing from. Whereas in communities where people turn out, well, you're going to hear from these people. So we need to, at the bare minimum, we need to appease them. And the appeasement might be, well, we'll give them some money for that project. We'll give them money for this project. We'll make sure their roads are plowed. We'll make sure that the school is built new. All those kinds of things happen because they don't want to hear from them. But in areas where people are disengaged, there isn't a lot of turnout. So it's very, very important. And I guess the overall thing I'm trying to leverage out of what you said for our audience is that you're not turning out literally affects the public health care you get in your community. Whether there's an urgent care center, whether there's a mental health center, whether there's money set aside for programs in your school where you can get mental health. If there's communities that are poorer or impacted by poverty, oftentimes have issues around crime. So, does the school have emergency teams that come in and give you mental health care and talk to you or crisis teams that come in when situations happen? Or is it something that, is kind of like, oh, well, that's just a normal way of life in that community, so we don't really worry about it. And so all these policies that are made, I would imagine, by people that are in your position. But if the people that you're trying to help are disengaged, it would seem to me that makes your job all the harder.
Well, I mean, as a public health practitioner, I would say that we can't change everything. We can't change everyone. If we make a change for one person, that one person change another person, it trickles its way. So we don't go into the field of public health. Well, I would say for myself, our goal is to prevent and protect the population, but we know that we're not going to do that for everyone, right? And I want to go back to my statement earlier around policy, system, and environmental change. In order for us to see the changes that we want in our community, we have to move beyond the individuals and focus at the level where those changes impact individual behaviors. So if we're looking at a particular health condition, probably I'll go back to violence in the community, which is a public health issue or public health crisis we're seeing across only in Connecticut. But we have to look at the policies in place. We also have to look at the individual level, but it has to be a multi-level approach. And we also need to look at what's going on in the particular community. What are the ways that we can be more responsive, culturally, sensitively, tailored to see what exactly we need. If we think about addressing these health conditions, how can we start addressing these health conditions before we even get to where we are? If we're using a life course perspective, right? So life course perspective look even before pregnancy, all the way up until the person is an elderly. So how can we use those theoretical framework that we have in public health to help frame and address and reduce disparities while addressing or while achieving health equity in our community?
That's beautiful, Dr. Reed. I've often said on the program that any issue that deals with black and brown folk has to be dealt with through the lens of health. This way, there's more of a conscious effort by the health community to really help with some of the things that we're talking about on this program. Now, with that being said, Dr. Reed, do you think that the way that black and brown people vote can be addressed through the lens of health?
This is my perspective, and I think during the pandemic, I see a lot of work being done around whenever there's a policy, there should be something policy in health, because everything about our life have an aspect of health. Just like now we're seeing a more initiative around trauma-informed care, right?
Yes.
Any policy, anything that has to do with the population should have a component of in health. And if we are proactive when we design our policies to include in health or to be trauma informed, we will be better equipped rather than being reactive to what we are experiencing. Right, so if we put those in health, if you're putting out a policy around transportation, there should be something in there that address health, right? Because if you look at the pandemic, during the peak, the first wave, it crippled our community because we weren't as prepared as we would like to address those elements that public health affect every aspect of our daily life, right? So anything that we put out, even if we think it doesn't have anything to do with health, we should have this in-health component so we're not reactive when we are caught off guard.
Man, what a beautiful answer, Dr. Reed. I am completely in accordance with you. It's so good to have you. We look forward to having you back again in the near future to continue this discussion. Thank you so much for coming on. I know how busy you are, and I know that it takes a lot of effort for you to move your schedule around. So we're very grateful to have you on today, Dr. Reed. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to spend time to kind of talk about how we can address and reduce disparity while achieving health equity through policy, systems, and environmental changes.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Dr. Reed. Like I said, we look forward to having you back on in the near future.
Absolutely.
And have a wonderful day, and thank you for all that wonderful information, man. Let's keep growing and let's keep building.
All right. Thank you all. Be well.
You too.
Sister, peace.
Amen.
So Stan, man, what a wonderful guest.
Absolutely. Great information. Great information.
Intelligent, man. And it's like I like to say, Stan, there's brains behind them good looks, man. She's outstanding. I'm grateful that she came on, and moving right along, brother. I just want to give out a couple shout outs, but the first one is going to go out to what's his name? Now I forgot the guy's name. Walden St. Just and his beautiful wife Melissa St. Just. They have been doing a basketball tournament, brother, for the last 10 years in honor of a young brother that passed, Bomani Jones. The tournament is called Bomani Jones Lives Through Us. It was held at Goodwin Park. That place was full the whole weekend. It was just pure love, great energy. Walden and Melissa and everybody else that was involved, thank you for the love that you've shown Bomani in our community, because you all have impacted so many people through this tournament in a very, very positive way. So we're grateful for everything that you do, and I want to say thank you on behalf of our community.
All right.
It was outstanding, Stan, and I tried to get you out there, man. I went out there and I seen so many people that were supporting, watching the game, and the talent out there was outstanding. So many young people from the greater Hartford area, not just from Hartford. They came from everywhere to support this tournament, man. And it's really, it's like the biggest summer tournament around here.
Wow.
In terms of like a tournament, there's only like 3 days. I think they do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And, with all the championships culminate on Sunday, man. They have food, they have music. It's just a nice community environment. That's the kind of stuff that we want, man. So, yeah.
If you all have any kind of community events or anything like that, please let us know, because we'd love to stop by, take some shots, do a little shout out, and so just drop us drop it into the chat section, and we'll stop by. I wish he did call, but by the time I checked in with him, it was over.
So I just want to mention also that I'm doing another show stand with brother Renardo Dunn. And this is a show that's similar to this one. It's just about bringing the community information, and we plan to have some guests on. And I want to give myself a little plug. The Taino Chess Club at 1020 Farmington Avenue in Berlin is open Wednesday through Saturday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Mondays from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you so much to all who support us. Shout out to our elders, Eugenio Caro, Luke Brown, that are here with us, still trying to teach us some things. And we need to take advantage of these wonderful leaders out here. And to all who are tuning in and listening and watching, we love to hear your phone calls and your comment. And anybody, like Stan said, who has any activity, let us know. We love to promote it. And anybody that wants to come on, give me a call. And if you want the bus, if you want Stan and his team to bring the bus to your block, give me a call, 860-402-3095. We love to bring the bus to every single block in the city. Any questions that you have, we'll have the candidate right there for you. Thank you so much, family. Have a wonderful week. Peace to all.
All right, my friends, our time together has come to an end. We will see you here next time on Morning Talk. Y'all go out and have a great rest of your day. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, Hartford, Connecticut, I'm talking to you. We gotta get out and vote. Vote for Stan McCauley. It's our time. We gotta rise up and take it back. Vote for Stan McCauley.
Vote for Stan. You gotta vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Oh yeah.
It's more than politics than just what your social covers. And it ain't somewhere written down in bold letters. Don't just take my word for it, do your research. Think of your future, look at your bigger picture. Shooting tie, clean up, unity for the righteous. Plotting on action, hands on access. With a light source vision, door to door knocking. Guerrilla style marketing, brainstorm as a collective. Real neighborhood suggestions. Only we know what it is where we living. To make real life decisions. Move on facts, make it manifest back.
You gotta vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Oh yeah. Look at your city. Stop. Take a look around. Is opportunity flow into your house? Are you working? Wait, can you save some money? And is your neighborhood safe? Or is it a homicide every night?
My name is Marlon E. Starler Sr. Many of you may know me as the two-time welterweight champion of the world. I'm here to tell you that Democrat J. Stan McCauley, as our next mayor, will fight for you until the last bell. Help me throw a knockout punch. Go out and vote for Stan the man.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I approve this message.